REVOT8. The fifth law of anxiety. You must acquiesce to they that are expressing the most anxiety. Now this is a biggie, man, because while the fourth law is you must accept without question the dishonesty that is caused by the first three laws, the fifth law is you must acquiesce to they that are expressing the most anxiety. Now, it is a thing that is the fact that if you don't have enough quality information about something important, one will invariably start speculating about that said thing, and that will be a case of promoting anxiety as wisdom. And because you're selling it to someone, because you want someone to listen, you are promoting anxiety as virtuous. Okay, while there is not the quality data to talk about, right? I mean, specifically, we can say that since anxiety for all of the history of our civilization has been intangible, this is just a totally supercharged version of the fourth law, because not only can't talk about it, it actually, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. This is this shows you how amazing the cognition of consciousness is, when anxiety can do all of this and completely control language and have us believe it doesn't exist. This is remarkable, man. This is the most amazing thing, that it gets away with that, or has gotten away with that, and it's quite the thing that I've figured out that it is doing it, and I've been able to bring a qualification to you about it. And so the fifth law, you must acquiesce to they that are expressing the most anxiety. So this is what shuts down heaps of people, because everyone knows, right? Everyone knows that because of the second law, okay, because of the fourth law, okay, because really someone acting out in an aggressive way in public, okay, it's really about the fourth law. Because this is in the realms of accepting without question the dishonesty, right? So you must acquiesce to they that are expressing the most anxiety. And so you get these things that are acting out. And so this is a very big element of the news media, right? And economists and, political scientists. And so if you got a political scientist like in New Zealand, right, from a university, they all live at university, and you got them to speak about like Syria or something like that, they would give you this warmongers. They would give you a warmonger opinion. Okay, they would. Which invariably means that anxiety is virtuous. Because in that instance, literally the enemy doesn't exist. So confident in they of themselves that they are the righteous. Okay, and so this is what happens. So they promote all this anxiety as wisdom. That's why the news only tells you good news, bad news. It's because that's what they think people like, and it's true. People do like bad news, and this isn't a challenge to some conspiracy theory. I'm making an observation of why people are drawn to drama. Okay, and it's partly to the fifth law. If you must acquiesce to they that are expressing the most anxiety, if you must acquiesce to they, it must mean that they're your leader. They're your leader. And so this is just an observation I'm making on how people's feelings get affected by language to have the outcome where one capitulates and one prevails. Okay, and this is the mechanics of that. This is the political mechanism of that, and and this is how that goes down. And you know, and it's the same. It's just it's an observation. But if you had an old car, or your business, you had a business or an old car, or myriad other situations, you've got one failing part, and then there's one part that's a bit wonky, you know, and you would immediately gravitate to the worst part, wouldn't you? You would immediately fix the most serious thing, wouldn't you? Because that's what consciousness, so that's what consciousness is compelled to do, to immediately go to the most serious problem and fix that first. And in all honesty, consciousness would think of an answer for both at the same time. In all honesty, consciousness would not, it would put in place housework, it would get the housework in there to actually stop things failing, okay? And that's the big other side of the pendulum swing from this civilization, where they believe that anxiety is wisdom. This is why they're running around playing, you know, having to catch up with all these problems, right? And so this is all a consequence of these 8 laws. That is the conventional wisdom. You must acquiesce to their expression, emotion, anxiety. So that's a natural response of consciousness. But in the political sphere, this creates the thing where anxiety is seen as the leader. This is why anxiety keeps getting centre stage all the time. This is how politicians sell their message to the public to get their votes. They need the blessing of the people's anxieties, is what they're doing. You know? It's ludicrous. But this is an observation of this hierarchy of elements and dynamices, right, that exist when consciousness has been hijacked by anxiety and effectively takes consciousness out of its natural world, its natural setting, which is a limitless expanse, the limitless spiritual expanse, and reduces it down to this tiny space. And in keeping with the political correctness of anxiety, it wants that place you exist to be as small as possible. And so here we have this civilization. And so this is because of the 5th law. An observation that is of the natural instinct of consciousness to immediately find a solution for a problem. It's a joyous thing for consciousness to do this. Consciousness loves this. This is its favourite thing, is to see how fast it can nail a problem, bring a solution, you know, and so this is the thing of it. But when consciousness has been hijacked by anxiety, and because of language, it exists as a political entity, this is having a massively different outcome, where it's actually willfully creating the problems. And while we think that anxiety doesn't exist, and it is 100% invested in maintaining a problematic environment, this is this world we've got. And so this is like this is what happens, man. And so that's what I can say about that. It's that simple, because you know what, you've all seen it. This is something that's hugely common, and when you are objective, you can see that we all have these issues that come up that we need to attend to. Do I it's invariably a case where you've got to do several things without enough resources. So you pick which one's most important, and then consciousness. It's consciousness doing its thing. It's assessing which is most important, what order should I do things. You know, you develop this plan of action, like literally within about 5 seconds, you can actually analyze this multifaceted equation in your mind, and you can have a really detailed network of things in the environment, and you know, you can come up with a plan and within seconds that this is like that and that goes there and over here, and nah, I'll do that there and I'll get that done then, and then this can happen, and then you know, an owner of a business who is invariably a nurturer, they can instinctively make directions, man. You know, they can make you know, a decision about a complex equation, and boom, they're in it, right? And a lot of the time, nurturers have their businesses where they're only maintaining it. It's ticking over, and they're only taking care of housework issues, which is it's the same thing, but it's problems that are vastly smaller. Like if you had a big piece of plant that self-destructed, and you had to materialize another one, you know, and then you've got all the downtime that it's down out, and you know, things happen, man. And but when anxiety is seen as virtuous, you know, that makes everything then the political thing. Okay, and you know, there's another evidence of the fifth law, and it's a matter of political optics. But you know how the middle management love paperwork. You know, you go to do something with a government department or a kind of a corporate entity, or even not a corporate entity, even just a business, right? You've got to apply through their middle management, right? You know, and they've just got forms and forms and forms and forms, right? All sorts of forms. You know, if you apply to a job through a temp agency in New Zealand, you know, one of these ones, man, I went through, it was like I was being interrogated by the CIA. They wanted such a detailed level of data about my personal self. You know, I thought I was being interviewed by the police. Now, the reason that they love the pieces of paper and they love to have all that information written down is because actually they have an aversion to communicating, right? The aversion to communicate, and that's why they want everything written down. And it's not because they are really wise and educated and all that. It's because they have an aversion to communicate, and when it's all down on a bit of paper, it in one instance tells you that they have an aversion to communicate, which is going back to the fifth law, going back to the fourth law, tells you that they have a high level of anxiety. The fifth law of anxiety is you must acquiesce to they that are expressing the most anxiety. So when you're petitioning them, you're actually acting out of consciousness, and so of course they're expressing the most anxiety in this mini relationship between yourself and themselves. Okay, so the political optics of that is that they believe they're expressing the most anxiety, and thus is our civilization being developed in the way it has. Okay, the money is just a speedometer, okay, of what the spirituality situation is, and that is only consciousness versus anxiety, right? And what I've just described is the fifth law of anxiety and how it influences language. And it influences language, but we don't take much of an experience to know fluently what the implications of that is, and then we don't go there. Then that's how we approach it, that this political agreement is the law, and that is why the money is only the speedometer of what any situation is, you know. So there's the fifth law, and that's like, I'll just have to say, that goes into the sixth law, which is you must always express loyalty to the laws of anxiety. And this is a matter of the political correctness of anxiety, because anxiety governs language and by implication thought, because we only instinctively conceptualize the process of consciousness according to the means to express the consciousness. And so that's where the great corruption happens, because we go to express consciousness with the voice, but anxiety has control of language. And this is an observation of our civilization right now. And so the sixth law is you must always express loyalty to the laws of anxiety, because this is politically correct. Because in your own individual experience, if you go to challenge your anxieties about something, they will bite back. And I've made this analogy of it. It's like having a big bug attached itself to you, right? And any time you go to try and touch it, it bites in harder. If it gets the idea that you want to get rid of it, it'll just bite in harder. And that's an analogy of how anxieties, have, this experience of that consciousness is having while anxiety has hijacked it. Okay, and I mean one of the greatest events that exemplifies this relationship between anxiety and consciousness, right, and the political correctness of consciousness, is actually the Russian Revolution, because they says, oh, the workers must rise up, you're being oppressed, rise up, which is anxiety talking people into believing it. And then as soon as actually that had happened, the anxiety which was the leader of the political environment, right, then set about massacring everyone, because that's politically correct according to anxiety. Everyone needs to just, be ended, and that's evidenced by how the gender equality argument has the secret purpose of making the country culture neutral. Okay, the Russian Revolution thing, they just took it a step further and just killed everyone. And so this is a replication. This is the replication of the funky, and you've got the two instances there. And anyway, that's the fifth law of anxiety. And just like to say shout out to Karen, because this is a very good idea that I should do this singular analysis of each law, and you're the greatest for that, because every writer needs their ass kicked to do the job, because this is the thing, it's their heart. And so thanks Karen, and roll on next video.